Good evening. It's Wednesday night, 7 o'clock. Time for Zoom into Wine. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Every week we get together right here at 7 o'clock to talk about some other region or grape variety or meet with experts. And this week is really special. We're talking about Rioja, and we've got some great wines for us to taste. We're going to learn a lot about this historic region. We've got an expert with us. Nina is with us. Hi, Nina.
Hi all. Hi Ian. How are you? Hi.
Fantastic. Nina works with the region of Rioja and is here to help back me up in our presentation, give us some nice little factual background, some little color commentary, and let's get started. We've got some great wines to taste. I'm going to get right into the slideshow and make it happen. I don't know how many of you've been to Rioja, but it's an incredible place to visit. I highly recommend it. I love Spain in general, but you can't make a visit to Spain without including a trip to Rioja. It's just absolutely essential and a wonderful place to really get your wine on. 100 years, right, Nina?
Yes, 100 years as an official wine region when it achieved its status as a DO. You know, Spain has similar to Italy, which has and France, France has AOCs. Italy has DOCs. Spain also has something similar. The official wine regions are DO, and in Rioja, it's been 100 years since it was Spain's first official wine region, Denominación de Origen, and it was also Spain's first DOCA, highest quality wine region, Denominación de Origen Calificada, but we're going to have to wait till 2091 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of that. So for right now, let's just celebrate the 100th. Okay. But just a word about this. Rioja has been making wine, and the famous bodegas, the wineries, have been in existence, at least everything, almost everything that we're going to taste today, for since the 1800s, the mid 1800s. That's really when Rioja entered what they call their modern region, their modern period. We would call a modern period the 1980s, the 1990s. No, for Rioja, their modern period was the 1850s, 1860s on. And this is when Rioja began to be known all around the world. But, you know, it's been a wine region known for its wines for several hundred years.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the case with, a lot of regions in Europe were really kind of established by the wine trade, the monasteries, the monks, they were making money making the wine from the vineyards for the church. And, then the bottle shape started to take form and start to tell you where the wine was from. There's all types of stories, but the marketing of actual producers really was kind of later in wine's life.
Yeah.
Rioja was really important back in the 1500s, 1600s,
Okay.
and they found their market at that time and really it kind of solidified Rioja has a very important wine spot. Italy didn't get a DOC until what was that, 1969 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So some regions took a little longer to organize. And we're going to learn a lot about Rioja tonight. We won't squeeze it all into the first wine before the rosé, so we'll just cover a little bit of the basics here and start drinking. But we've got a lineup of great vintages here. There's some different, there's Bueno, Muy Bueno, or MB, and excellent. So very high quality vintages back for the last 25 years. Very dependable growing zone. This is a look at what is La Rioja, the area. The wine is called Rioja, but this is La Rioja, and it's a big growing zone. And then here's a list of the grape varieties. A lot of people don't realize that it's much more than just Tempranillo.
Mm.
In fact, recently Nina hosted a tasting for the trade where we were being introduced to just 100% Garnacha wines and that were still called Rioja, but they were really magical. One of my favorite wines of the year, in fact. We'll be talking about that in a later tasting. But we've got the red grapes or the tintos, Tempranillo, Grenache, Graciano, Masuela, Materna Tinta, and then you've got the blancos, which primarily we think of Viura, which is also synonymous for Macabeo.
Mhm.
And then you've got the Tempranillo Blanca and all the other blancas, including a grape variety called Materna Blanca that is very historic and kind of making a little bit of a renaissance. And then you've got some other grape varieties that some of them might look familiar, like Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and Torrontés. So some interesting things to note that all those could be included.
Yeah, can I just interject one thing? I think many people are surprised by all of the white grapes that are allowed to be produced in the region because Rioja has been known for hundreds of years as a red wine region, and still about 90% some odd of the wines it produces are red. Why all the whites? And why do they add Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc? Would we import Chardonnay from Rioja? No. The Chardonnay and the Sauvignon Blanc in particular, but especially the Chardonnay, was approved because it grows almost everywhere, right? You can grow Chardonnay successfully in many places, but Rioja approved a new sparkling wine. They've never had an approved sparkling wine. It's not a cava. They call it an espumoso. And so typically the Chardonnay has been planted recently in the past 5, 6, 7 years to supplement and add on to Viura and a couple of other grapes to produce a very sophisticated Espumoso, a sparkling wine with the same aging and method as champagne. So that's why they planted some of those white grapes, even in the face of climate change, right?
Wow,
So interesting.
very cool.
Okay.
Another just a couple of things to digest before we get rocking here. We've got different categories, and I think this is really one of the smarter things that we can understand about Rioja is how they organize things. And they've got these categories and they're time-based categories. So how long the wine must be at the winery and for how many months.
Mm.
It used to be a lot of time in wood. Now they kind of loosened it up so that wineries can decide themselves how much time in wood and how much time in the bottle. But even with this type of organization, the wineries still use this as kind of like a base, and some wineries go well beyond these requirements. But these minimum time requirements really add to the quality of the product. And we'll talk about each of these as we discover them, whether it's Crianza, Reserva, or Grand Reserva. I don't think we have anything that fits into the generic category, but maybe I.
It's the rosé. It's the rosado and the monopole. The yeah, wines one and two are in that, and it's a horrible word. We told them that genérico is not a good word for export because it means plain and bland, in English, but it's a category that means young fresh wines that have no oak, or this is the category that all the garagistas are using, all of the hip winemakers, all of the guys on the edge, um, everything new and up and coming, those wines are in this category.
Well, if we say it with a cool Spanish accent, it sounds a lot better.
Yes, it does. Genetico, okay. But the purpose of this is, and Ian, I don't know if you have any bottles to show, but every single Rioja bottle has to have one of these labels by law. And all the bottles, if you see that, it looks like a holographic label on there, if you could see on the screen. Every single Here, I'll go into my rah-rah about Rioja because it speaks to the quality and how they've been able to maintain the quality for 100 years. Every single bottle of Rioja is coded. It has its own, almost like its own SKU number. and it can be traced. So, you know, the origin of every single bottle of wine and where it's going out. And so, of the millions of bottles that are produced, everything has to have a label. And it's all in one of these categories. And it was smart of them. And they color coded it when in 2008, this was a request from the EU, I think, so that when they export their wines to China or Greece or Russia, the the alphabet is not the same, right? You know, the language is not the same. The color of the labels still means the same thing and is something that can be long lived. Okay.
Perfect. Perfect. So again, we've got a lot to talk about with the region and the 100 years of the organization. Um, let's get into our first wine. This is our Muga Rosato. This is a rosé from a very top house, the House of Muga in Haro. And I picked this wine long ago to be a performer for us. Winemaker is also got the name Muga, and we'll see a picture of him in a little bit. But since 1932, the Muga family has been in Haro operating as Muga. They're one of the many Haro-based wineries that also make a lot of their own wood. They're coopers, and much of that was out of necessity, as for a long time, Spain and France weren't necessarily doing business together. And also, they have a history of doing a lot of barrel repair as well as building new barrels. So at Muga, a lot of new wood is produced, and other wineries will see them not even make new barrels, but just continuously repair the old. And so this is something they do. And another thing to notice of the size of these estates, we're talking about pretty significant productions that are really world ambassadors for Rioja. They make way, way more wine than they can drink in Spain. And the population of Spain being muy poquito and the exports being huge. Here's another look at the little circle where Muga is located.
That's the if you saw there was a little snow on the top of the mountains there, and yes, it does get cold because Rioja is in northeast Spain. It's not in the hot area, which is why it's able to produce wines of great quality and able to be aged.
It's also along a very important river that allowed Rioja to get exported quite easily, being
Mm.
able to make it to the marketplaces because Muga or sorry, Rioja very landlocked, but with a great river that basically spans the entire country from east to west. So here's our look at our wine. 60% Garnache, co-fermented with Viura, the white grape variety. This wine is very crispy and fresh and delicate. I think you said gastronomic, Nina.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Provençal because the color is beautiful and like that kind of salmon-ish color, right? Although the people from Provence object to using fish terms to describe their wines, but um, yes, it's a beautiful color, and sorry, this style of wine, blending red and white grapes together and co-fermenting them, is not unique to Spain or unique to Rioja, but was a style that was done at least 100 years ago. They call it clarete. It's spelled claret, but it doesn't mean a claret like a red wine, like a Bordeaux wine. It means a different thing in Rioja, and exactly this. And the presence of the Viura, you know, white grape blended in with a red grape at the same time stabilizes color and aromatics. And yeah, and this style, this Muga style, is very well known and unique to them.
And Vieira is a really interesting grape variety, very resistant to oxidation, very long living. And the Grenache really plays, I think, there's obviously 60% in here, but I feel as I'm tasting this wine and feeling the wine, I really feel the Vieira kind of carrying this down the line, a certain intensity, a spring action, a tightly wound coil that's very, very consistent with the Vieira wines that I taste often and I love and this is a really beautiful wine. Now, here's our slide definitions of Grenache and Vieira. Of course, Garnacha or Grenache, same grape variety. It's the G and the GSMs of the world. It's the very important grape. It's one of the most planted grape varieties on the planet and really a common grape throughout Spain. And honestly, it makes some of the most exciting wines in the wine world. Wines from, obviously Rioja, but also Chateauneuf de Pape, and some great wines. And whether you're in Australia or Paso Robles, Grenache or Garnacha is really important. Viura is still being discovered outside of Spain, but it is a really important wine throughout Spain and is the backbone of the cava industry when they make the sparkling wines from Macabeo. But Viura is the name of the grape variety inside of La Rioja.
And we're about to taste two white wines, beautiful white wines made of Jura that express their, you know, that are expressive different in different ways. So, yeah.
And different price points.
Yeah, and it's not a grape that we know here. I'm sure somebody in California is grow or Texas is growing Macabeo, but
Yeah.
it's really a Spain thing.
92 points from James Suckling. I really think that orange zest, that kind of white peach, um, are really kind of key things to note here. And I think the wine's in really good shape. And in fact, the importer came to me. I had very good sales of Muga Rosado for much of the last 5 years. They came to me with a pretty big opportunity to buy up the rest of the 2021. And I did so, not exactly expecting to still have it here in 2025, but we're down to our last, like, I think there's less than 40 bottles now on the website. But this wine is really at a significant savings. I was selling it all day long up around 21 to $22. We've cut that wine price in half to move through the remaining 2021. And for anybody that buys the wine tonight that's watching this Zoom, I'm going to give you two bottles for the price of one as an incentive. If you like the wine, how does $6.25 sound?
Wow.
That's going to be the price for the remaining, however many we have until it's sold out. So I just want to let you know that that's an opportunity I'm passing on to our Zoom audience tonight.
And we should remember, well, I do think rosé is a very good Thanksgiving wine and a holiday wine. It's, like the hors d'oeuvres, the whatever. I think it works very well with, charcuterie boards. And I think this Muga would do very well, right? It's not as floral as others. It has that, like you said, that orange zest, that kind of white peach. Yeah, I think it would be beautiful for the holidays. So snap it up.
Yeah, nice with Thanksgiving and anything else that you can put around the table. I definitely think the wine's in great shape. And remember, we pour these wines on Monday, we taste them on Wednesday. And this wine's still in wonderful position. I will recommend to be drank in the next year or so, but I think it is in the perfect spot. And a lot of times when we think of rosé, we think, oh, we got to drink them really fresh. And they're so primary. They don't have any time to integrate. I love tasting and exploring the rosés when they're in their second and third and fourth years. And that's really, I think, when they're in their peak. And sometime shortly after that, they start to fade. And we explore that. And we also explore the opportunity that a good value comes along. And when Muga came to me with a chance to buy a bunch of cases for a low price, I was able to share that price with you guys. And now I'm doubling down on that for this group. I want to tell you, when I go to Rioja, it is just breathtaking vineyard land, and it is immense vineyards. You know, we're going to look at vineyards tonight that range from 700 acres to 1,500 acres. So these are massive properties, but they may not all be small. They may not all be contiguous sites. Some of them own large plots of land without a lot of vineyard. There's a lot of forest. There's a lot of hillside. But Rioja is broken up into thousands of these teeny little vineyards, and
Mm.
a lot of them are owned by small families. When the wineries are able to acquire, they do, and they are able to upgrade the growing, the latest technology, the latest, you know, there's no longer grandpa making the grapes anymore or growing the grapes. It's now somebody with a high level credential degree who understands vineyard science. And so wine it just keeps getting better because of all of that we're all the layers of experience, wisdom, and education that we're putting in at every level. And with that, we'll go to wine number two, to one of my favorite producers. This is Kune, and that is a V. It's CVNE, Kune. It is a great producer. They make multiple different levels. We carry numerous SKUs from Kune, but I wanted to show you a Rioja Blanc that has a lot of great value and is something fun and something not don't have to get too crazy to open a bottle like this. And then we're going to show you something a little crazy. That's why I wanted to do it this way. This is just a phenomenal producer of great size. You can see the entire family of wines, and I do carry at multiple levels, different wines from the Imperial to the Crianza. Throughout the year, I'll even carry additional SKUs. This is an incredible visit, and these wines just are benchmarks for Rioja, and they work at almost every single price point. Now, Kune is a large producer, so large I was able to visit their warehouse, and the warehouse is enormous. In fact, I'm not sure if it was always planned, but the warehouse was creating its own weather, Nina.
You're kidding, really? Inside of it? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's scary.
yeah, it was so huge. I mean, it was like almost a moment of rain was occurring inside of the warehouse. That's how big it was. They have an immense amount of wine stored. They do not store the wines with the labels. They put the labels on just as they're walking out the door, but the wines are in these giant steel crates stacked like a mountain for the international markets. And some of them sit in those crates for 10, 15, 20 years before they get out of the warehouse. So it's an enormous warehouse of size, and it was remarkable to be in there and to have to wear the raincoat as we did the tour. Now, this is the Monopole 100% Viura that we're going to be tasting here. I'm going to put it in my glass and taste it with you at this time.
I have a lot of color commentary on this.
Go for it.
Am I allowed? Okay, first of all, this Kune, even though the initials on the crest say CVNE, which stands for Compañía Vinícola del Norte de España, a very romantic brand name. The the wine company of northern Spain. Okay. Um, they themselves nicknamed their winery Cune because they realized that when they wrote CVNE, people around the world were not understanding. And so they just gave in and they're like, we'll just call it Cune because it looks like a U. So it's the silliest thing, but this is what they do.
Love
So,
that.
right. So a bit about this wine. Okay.
Well, there's also a bit of a Roman tradition of switching the printing of V's and U's that's
Okay. See, I
a
didn't
couple of
know that.
thousand it's a couple of thousand years old
Okay.
of the
Yes,
U
exactly.
sound being written like a V. So
Okay, so maybe that's also like goes into it. Okay, so this wine was the first official white wine registered in Spain. And it's the first white wine that was exported from Spain. And interesting because Rio has a red wine region, but this is iconic. They made it originally and bottled it in the Riesling, this Riesling bottle. Do you have the actual bottle there?
I do.
So you can kind of show it in perspective. Yeah, the dark green Riesling bottle. Why? Because they wanted the wine, um, they made the wine to be in a style of the dry, refreshing German wines at the time, German white wines at the time, and which were bottled like, in these dark green bottles, these tall bottles, and they have kept that look. And so that's a little bit about that. But just to step back a little bit about the winery itself, like many of the wineries that we are tasting tonight, they are on their fifth generation of in the family. That is really amazing. And the young woman who's in her mid 30s, who is the fifth generation of Cune, describes their Grand Reserva um, as having aromas and a spirituality of it smells like being in a cathedral. That's how she described it. That's how iconic it is. So we're not tasting the red wine tonight, the Grand Reserva tonight, not theirs, but there's just a lot of history and background and romance and tradition that goes along with this region.
Here's a look at the Vieira grape variety, as we discussed, also known as Macabeo. And that, in Bordeaux, Nina, uh, white Bordeaux constitutes a very small percentage of the
Right.
wine made. And something like 3 to 4% is the white wine of Bordeaux.
Really.
What's the percentage of white Rioja?
It's well, it used to just be about 8% up until 6 or 7 years ago when the Tempranillo Blanco started being produced more, right? And they started adding the Sauvignon Blanc and the Chardonnay and the Verdejo, right, which is a Spanish grape, and they use all that for blending. So I would say at this point it's 10%, maybe growing to 11% when you consider the sparkling. It's not, they're not going to flip it. I mean, there's 11 or 9 approved white varieties and still only 5 red approved varieties, and they're not going to change that because that's their lifeblood.
Now, was it 2 years ago, Nina, that we did a program together? Was it already
Yeah,
two? It's,
yeah,
I
yeah.
was looking for the video with Victor, and it was over almost 2 years old now. Such a gentleman, such a great leader, such a wonderful human being, and really has a great personality. And I want to make sure I make it back over there to see him very, very soon.
Again, fifth generation. Yeah. Hmm.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Another angle of the facility.
And this is in Otto, right?
Yeah.
Cune
Yeah.
is in Otto, along with Muga and several other wineries that we're going to be tasting.
Yeah. I almost kept the entire event in Haro.
Right.
So here's a look at our bottle, 12.95, and we continually reorder this wine.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
It's in a great spot. I think I would love to just kind of pay attention to the chat box now and see what other comments you guys have. If you have any tasting notes that you want to put in there. Um, but love to get your ideas about the nose of this wine. I think the you can feel the how that viewer tension. I felt the same tension in the rosé that you feel in the mouth here. Firm, refreshing. The acidity's got a nice tail and leaves the mouth really refreshed. And it's a lot of fun just to pop open a bottle of this and to do so many different things. You don't have to take it too seriously. It's a low cost, but compared to a California wine at $12.95, there's a lot of personality in our Kune monopole. All right, we'll move into wine number three and keep
Mm, wow.
moving along. I love to taste the extremes. And when you're tasting a wine of value, I want to show you something that I feel is one of the great wines of the world. Also, just one of the great wines of Rioja, but also one of the great wines of the world. I love to show this blind in tastings of great Burgundy and other wines, just to kind of see if people even think about white Rioja being part of that mix. This is a wine that ages like forever and is often listed in the top 100 wines of the world.
Yeah.
This is from the house of Marquez de Murrieta, founded in 1852, another 740-acre vineyard holding, also associated with the House of Roeder. Everything that Roeder has got beautiful aesthetic. They don't lack in resources, so they make sure everything looks absolutely spectacular. In fact, the gentleman who's running the property now comes from Bordeaux and comes from a historic family and has a great polish to himself as well. And I really love the entire operation, Marquez de Murrieta.
And
Um,
he is the Marquez. You think that these are just names on chateaus, but they're he is, I think you're talking about I forgot his name. He's very handsome, right? Yeah, yeah.
his grandmother owned the Pichon Lalonde.
Yes, yes. And he does hold the title of Marquez de Murrieta. So he must be the fifth or sixth Marquez de Murrieta. But yeah, this wine is so beautiful.
Again, 100% Viera, but this time we're also seeing the use of wood barrel and Capellana.
Yeah. So this is a Reserva. So a white Reserva. Reservas, you remember those labels?
Even Grand Reserva.
It is. It says Gran Reserva.
Yes, Grand Reserva.
Wow. Okay. So Um, Grand Reservas must be aged for a minimum of, hello kitty, a minimum of 5 years before they're allowed to be released. So this is the 2018, right? And it's 2025. So this is about right, right? It was probably released what, last year?
Yeah, I picked this up about a year ago,
Yeah, yeah.
and I tend to buy this wine when it comes in because it's only in stock for a short period of time.
It's allocated, yeah, and it's good that you got your allocation. It is stunning, and here's the thing about Rioja, and the whole reason that they have the labeling system, the reservas, the Gran Reservas. Rioja holds its wines back. Okay, so They just released this 2018 a year ago. They're not in a rush to push it out. They don't need the money. They don't need you to buy the wine even before it's ready to drink in order to sustain the region. They hold the wines back until it's ready to drink. Does it not? But it also is possible that all of these wines can age much for a much longer period of time, but they don't expect you to put the time into it to age before it's ready to drink. So this one is just spectacular. But honestly, Viura aged in wood has a very long life. I mean, another 5 years on this wine, 6 years, it's just going to turn into a little perfumey kind of thing. It'll be beautiful, but I think it's in its good place now. What do you think,
Uh,
Ian?
well, first, I've had wines, white Riojas from the 1960s that are still incredible. And I think this wine has that kind of aging potential if you want to explore it. But what type of white wine is discussed when you talk about macadamia nuts and pine nuts and white sesame? I mean, that's just a really unique stack of
Yeah.
aromatics.
Yeah.
I mean, when you pick up this wine and put it in the glass, it's like nothing else. And that's what I love about it. It's just so different and so great at the same time. It's massive, but it's also beautiful and really a performer.
Yeah, that comment, it doesn't slap you in the face. It's subtle, yes, but it has a really beautiful, long aromatic finish. It's stunning.
Let's see what
Yeah.
others are saying here. Yeah, that was that Thomas. Thomas loves his European wines. I'm glad he likes this one. Yeah, this is a peach. This is something you put in your cellar, and again, you keep it with the great wines of the world. And this is just an absolutely stunning white. There are other great white Riojas, and there are other great Gran Reserva white Riojas, but probably none better. But they're all very, very, very good, right in the same um, bracket. I'm able to say better and worse, whereas Nina may not be able to say that because she works for the region.
Right. Yeah. Everything's my baby, and I'm not allowed to have like favorites, but this is really stunning. You bring this to the home of a what?
The
Burgundy
diplomat,
lover, Montrachet lover. I guess I'm not up on my Burgundy, but I would stack this wine and the experience of drinking it up against the finest white Burgundies.
for sure. And Nina, recently this summer, we did a white wine dinner with a seafood, like a pescatarian menu.
Mm,
And we were trying to explore the greatest white wines of the world. And this wine was a huge hit with the crowd that was
right.
there. We did it with, I think I saw somebody say coconut description, but there was a fried coconut shrimp.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Really rocked with this.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There was a question about the alcohol on this. I don't know. What is it? It's not,
On the handwritten label, by the way, doesn't say on the front, but
it
14.
tastes like 13.5 or something. It doesn't taste like it's 14. I don't know. It's pretty moderate.
It does say 14 on the back label, but
Does? Okay. Well,
safety gauge.
yeah, but honestly, I think the wine is so well balanced that I think it's all integrated well. It's a stunning wine. Beautiful. Can't wait to have it with my fried chicken later. Seriously.
There you go.
I bought it.
And at around $120 a bottle, when you start to look things up, that's like entry level Burgundy.
Yeah,
And really, this is one of the great wines of Spain. So a relative value.
beautiful. I'm getting a ton of floral in the nose right now. Yeah, it just keeps growing. Yeah, fried chicken and yeah.
And I can still feel it unwinding in my mouth. It's just such a unique experience. I'm not sure everyone will love it as much as we do, but I think if you love wine, you look for things that kind of make you say, "Wow, I didn't expect that," and "Ooh, that's interesting," because so many things are, same, same, same. These things are really different, and I love that about it.
Mhm.
Teresa, I'm glad you like it.
Oh, you had it. Oh, that's what you were eating, Lisa. I saw you eating something at the beginning, the paella with it. Good for you for doing that.
Awesome. Um, so we'll take a quick break here so you guys can enjoy the rest of that wine. I'm hosting a number of great trips in the coming year, and I want to call attention to them for a moment. November 15th, a day trip to Ojai. You can look at learnaboutwine.com and learn about that. I was just there on Sunday. We're going to go visit the vineyard in this picture. It's called Ojai Mountain, and it's on Sulphur Springs Mountain Ridge at 3,000 feet. It was planted along with Philip Katuri, one of the great vineyard consultants in the world. It is completely biodynamic, and they're making some really spectacular wines. They've got a very fancy Sonoma winemaking team. They take the fruit from Ojai up to Sonoma. There is not a winemaking facility at this location, but we will be able to taste the wines from their beautiful vista, looking out over that hillside, that valley. It might be filled with fog. It might be just crystal clear, like the day I was there. It's quite a spectacle, as all of the valleys around them are held in a land trust and completely
Hmm.
off limits to construction, and they're raw and it's rugged and it's vast and it's very raw land out there, and super, super special. So the family that bought this property knew that there was nothing else going up around them in their view, and it's like a view in infinity. Just an incredible spot. So that's my Ojai trip. We'll go to a couple of wineries, a great restaurant before we go up here to Ojai Mountain. My trip to Napa, we're going to be seeing the who's who of Whoville in Napa Valley, finishing off the trip with dinner at the French Laundry. Check out the website for all the details. It is no holds barred, which means that trip will be a very pricey weekend, but very special and very limited. February, we'll bring Oregon, and our trip to Willamette. We'll stay in Portland at one of the great hotels in Portland, and we've got many of food adventure with some of the top producers in Oregon. We're going to be doing a trip in April to Sardinia, and we're going to finish that off with a couple of days in Corsica, focused on the blue zones. A lot of my wine trips, 2 to 3 wineries a day. Sardinia is more like one winery a day, and then maybe a cheese producer, and one winery a day, and maybe a place where they take care of the sheep and some of the types of lifestyle things that they do in Sardinia. Really kind of slowing it down and really appreciating the island of Sardinia. We'll do a trip to Paris that will connect us to Champagne. The history of Champagne is fascinating, and we're going to start with a historical Champagne tour from Paris and then head into Champagne and stay in Champagne for a couple of days with some great families. And then we'll head to London and to Kent, because that's where the Champagne region is growing, with the Champenois buying the the great white cliffs of Dover and the land around it, because it's all chalk. So we're going to learn a lot about bubbles on this trip. It's quite an adventure. Check out the details and sign up for interest on that trip. We'll probably have that available to purchase in the month of November. Finally, New Zealand. So much to do in New Zealand. I don't know if I could make the trip long enough. It's the list of activities and places to go, and and discoveries to be made are sensational. And when you fly all that way, you want to try to do it all. So we're going to make a pretty adventurous trip out of New Zealand, and I'd love for you to come with us. Our trips feature about 10 to 14 guests, and always great wine and great food. Wine number four.
Wow. Nice introduction into the reds. Woo.
Right to it.
Wow.
Yeah, we didn't wait. We didn't, we could have stopped, kind of tippy-toed in
Right.
a little Crianza, but we went straight to a Reserva from one of the great vineyards in in all of Rioja from one of the great producers. This is Lopez de Heredia. It is an experience in itself, like no other. I mean, you know where you go places and there's like that one thing that you did that impacts you the most? This might be the winery that impacts you the most. One of the oldest, most established, most beautiful, and really well run establishments is Lopez de Heredia. They make a number of different single vineyard. Rioja, Tardonia is its most significant, probably in size, also in dollars. Really makes the landmark wines that they push out the longest into their Grand Reservas. Not the largest of the vineyards, 420 acres, but that's large enough to make a good amount of wine. And they're family owned and operated still today. That's a look at the vineyard land in the middle of winter. I have,
That's Tandonia. It's named because it's shaped like a rotunda, kind of like a yeah. It's named after the shape of the vineyard.
and is it surrounded by water as well?
No, no, just a little bit is on. You see the Ebro there, right? So it's not completely surrounded by water, but it is on one of the curves of the Ebro, you know, and it's their original vineyard. It's the original vineyard that they established the winery with. And it is a beautiful winery, but it is very traditional and very old.
Yeah. And this is one of those places I was telling you about earlier where they do not use new wood. They fix barrels, and they are famous for leaving things alone, like the walls, which are covered in almost a mushroomy growth because they believe that the winery is part of the terroir and it goes undisturbed. And they have these massive old vats that some of them 80 to 100 years old, and they have the barrel team there fixing and repairing barrels. And the use of old wood is part of what they do. It makes the wine different. It makes the wine smell like a little mushroom and a little, age time. There's something very different here. And you're talking about traditional Rioja using American oak,
Hmm.
the smell of the American oak, which there's some very distinctive things here. This the key, the like the buzzer, like if you're in a blind tasting and you smelt this, you might even throw down, not that you're smelling Rioja, but you're smelling Lopez de Heredia because it is so signature and the smell of dill.
Hmm. Yeah, in this winery, there's not a French oak anything to be found, nor is there a stainless steel anything. I don't even think they would have a stainless steel stirrer for okay for the vats. And they pride themselves on it. It's the old original tanks to deliver the grapes. And as you said, they only replace the staves. They never replace the entire barrel. and it shows. And they don't disinfect the winery, after the harvest. They just hose it down with warm water. It is very, very, very old school.
Very alive.
Yeah,
I want to say too, um, this is the current vintage, okay? And this is a Reserva. So when we looked at those color labels that you put on the bottle, where 5 years is a Grand Reserva, I told you that a lot of producers take that and go well past it. Well, Reserve is 3 years, and their current vintage, I think they just now moving into 2000 or 2013. But
yeah,
we're tasting 12 today. And that is part of what they want to do. They want to show you wines that make you go, wow. And their Grand Reservas are 2004, and their white Grand Reserva is 2001. Their 2004 Grand Reserva sells for north of $250, and the white is north of $300 and considered really an investment class wine. And it has been on the steep ascension in price and collectability as people are snacking them up uh, because they age these things are taught to age forever. I'm born in 1968, and the legendary 68 Tardonia is, if you have any, that would be a great way to, if I were to come to your house for dinner and you were to buy the wine, that would be the wine to buy. That would be great. It's also
yeah.
it's also about $2,000 bottle, but it is really that is one of my favorite wines, iconic wines to be able to find from my birth year. Everybody should find the best wine from your birth year, and I don't think it's gotten anything better than 1968 Tardonia for me.
Okay, cool. I'll keep an eye out for it. I don't know who would have it. Somebody in their cellar somewhere in Spain. So, somebody asked about the traditional netting
Yeah,
on Rioja bottles. Okay, so originally that was a fraud prevention because Rioja was known even way back in the 1800s and before that, but to be a spectacular wine. And like most famous wine regions, somebody thought to steal the wine and put plunk in the bottles, right? And so there's Maria Jose. And now it's a I would say it's more marketing. We don't need that because we have our own methods of preventing fraud. But that's the genesis of that.
and not every bottle has that. I think it's just the Grand Reserva that does that now.
Yeah, yeah.
But this woman right here, she is in charge of carrying the spirit of this brand forward, and she is relentless in her pursuit of turning back the clock and keeping Tardonia old school. And even the way she brings the wine to market and the instructions that she gives the importer and the way she manages the brand, it's a little different than anybody else. And with that, it's great respect. I got to meet her when I visited the producer. She is omnipresent. And I, I don't know if she still maintains this pace, but
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
I met her back in like, I don't know, 2010. Every year I get a signed card from her.
Really? Wow.
And they're beautiful, Nina.
Wow, that's
They're
amazing.
they're not just your normal like holiday card. They are custom made, graphically spectacular, lithographs and just really done at the highest
Wow.
level. And she's really, really an impressive human being. And I carry a disproportionate amount of Tardonia wines, if and when I can get them.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
when they're offered to me, I say yes, 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 and I figure out how to pay for them later. But they come and go. Right now we have a decent selection, but probably 6 or 7 wines from Tardonia in the house right now.
So this it stick your nose in here, and this is classic Rioja, classic aged Rioja. Okay. I mean, Ian mentioned that reservas only have to be aged for a total of 3 years, and really technically by law only have to have like um 18 months or 2 years in barrel and an additional amount of time in bottle. That's not what these people do. These people, I think this Reserva probably has 5 or 7 years in barrel, right? As evidenced by the fact that we're tasting the 2012, and then an additional whatever, before they release it in the bottle. And their Grand Reservas are aged, I think, about 10 years. So, yeah, this is classic Rioja. Also, I just have to point something out.
Yeah.
When you taste this wine, do you notice that it's very savory? There's a little bit of salinity and saltiness to it. It's one of the things that makes Rioja a very, very good food pairing wine. And to me, that is the nature of Tempranillo. In my experience, people ask what's the difference between Tempranillo and Pinot Noir or Cabernet or something. I would say Tempranillo is more a savory grape. You know, you get great fruit on it, but you're getting black plum, black cherry, and things like that, and dried fruits. It's different from, a Willamette Valley Pinot Noir, but yeah, it's got that kind of balance and this beautiful kind of savory aspect to it that makes it go so well with any food.
Also, just think, it's $60 for a 13-year-old wine. It's a
Right.
lot more expensive of a, as a Reserva. It's probably one of the more expensive Reservas in the marketplace. But the fact that they're also holding it for 13 years, and again, compare $60 in this wine versus what you could buy elsewhere in the world for $60. This is still, arguably a great value.
Yeah.
And it's certainly nowhere near the end of its life. This is a baby, and it'll probably taste very much like this for a very, very long time. It's a very slow to evolve wine because it's taught to get to this point and kind of hold this point for a very long period. I wanted to do something fun, and I got to tell you, this next wine, um, when I buy this wine, they market this wine a little differently. There's some different ideas here, uh,
Yeah.
but in the past, I've carried this wine 15 times.
Hmm.
I bring it in. I typically buy it 2 or 3 cases at a time, and somebody will swoop in and buy all of it, one chunk. Um, they tend to come into the market with a really aggressive price on a wine, and you're like, how do they do that?
Right.
And so the retailers get it, and they're like, we just got the new Fastino, and here it is. And the current vintage, kind of like Lopez, they're older. This is a Grand Reserva 2016, maybe one of the greatest vintages in Rioja.
Yeah.
And this is and they get punished a little bit with their score because of their style. Their style is way more conservative and really long aging. And when I opened this wine was the least ready to come out and play. So I haven't tasted it yet. I'm excited to taste it and see how it evolved in the last 2 days in the decanter. So let's get into this little slideshow. But that outside coating that's on the bottle, I think has some protective
Yeah.
value that a lot of people discount. Um, I remember when I was selling wine, there, with Tattinger
Right,
champagne, we made an artist champagne bottle that had literally a painting on the outside, and the way they put it on the bottle was with like almost like what you do with a car in wrapping the car.
right.
They did the same
Wow,
thing to the bottle, and it made the champagne age extremely slowly because there was no light penetration. And I think that
right.
what's going on with this wine.
Yes, exactly. And the bottle, yeah, so that coating, I mean, the original bottles were clouded, right, were shaded like that in the glass. But that's not sustainable in this modern world, okay? So they developed this process to add this special kind of outer layer coating. Faustino is one of the most exported and globally known Rioja wines in the world. And so you're right. Maybe sometimes it gets a little shade because of that, but it doesn't mean it's not equally as beautiful, and of merit.
They're also like the aren't they or if they're not the largest producer, they're at least the largest exporter because the slide says that.
Yes,
Largest
yes.
exporter of Grand Reserva. So this is kind of what they get to. You don't see a lot of their other wines out there as much as you see the Grand Reserva.
Right. And this Faustino the First, okay, this is the wine that established them, and it's what they are most known for, right? Like Lopez de Heredia with the Viña Tondonia. And it just so happens that Faustino is a larger winery than Lopez de Heredia, right? But there is something about this wine that is different from the one we tasted before and different from the one that we will taste afterwards. And that has to do with where the grapes are grown. So Lopez de Heredia and La Rioja Alta, which will be the last wines, are wines made in the Rioja Alta region of Rioja. The Faustino, the vineyards come from the Rioja Alavesa region. So it's not that it's all that far away. It's not hundreds of miles away, but it's two very different soil types. Faustino is 100% calcareous limestone soil, right? Uh, the previous wines, the wines grown in Rioja Alta, will have a mix of ferrous clay and limestone, and they taste very different. So, what I get from this middle wine, right, from the Faustino, is it usually plunks on my tongue a little different. It's a little silkier, right? It's perhaps a little bit smoother, maybe. Right, there we go. We got the soil map there, right?
Yeah.
Um, okay, so yeah, and if you take your little cursor and put it in Rioja Alavesa to the right, this Ollón, yeah, that's where Faustino is grown. Okay. And limestone does something very interesting to Tempranillo. It makes it a little bit darker. So pick up the Lopez de Heredia, if you look at it in your glass and tilt it, and then look at the Faustino. The Faustino is usually a slightly deeper color. Well, yes, and it's a different vintage, obviously, right? But 3 years difference, 4 years difference. But that's what Rioja Alavesa wines will do. That is what the calcareous soils do to Tempranillo. Just gives them darker fruit, right? Rather than the redder fruit of Rioja Alta. Um, and that's it. Just something I wanted to point out. It's just a different flavor difference, right? And a different blend. This is 100% Tempranillo. And the Lopez de Heredia was a blend of other grapes as well.
Yeah. And there's something very elegant about this wine. It's got
Mhm.
a softer uh, approach, a little bit more restrained, a little bit more maybe even the alcohol might even be a slight click lower. What do you think? Is that possible?
I don't know. You have a better palate than me. What does the bottle say? Yeah.
It says 14, but I
I,
just think that
I
that's
don't know.
part of
These wines are very balanced between acid and alcohol, and I think, but yeah, there's there's a different, as iconic as Lopez is. It's the limestone gives it a different profile. If you look at Haro all the way to the left, the west, in Rioja Alta, you see that brown area, right? And you've got Aro, right? That's where Lopez de Heredia is, okay? So there's some limestone soils there, but there's a big influence of that red, that's ferrous clay,
Mm.
right? And that always lends, yeah, it's iron clay. It definitely lends a little bit of an iron blood-like kind of sanguine characteristic to the wine. So very different, different producers, but different locations.
Fascinating. And I love the difference too. It's not like every Rioja has the same thing.
Right.
There really is a lot of texture, uh, you know, uh, difference between them, the different stories, the different ideas. And I think that's really exciting for Rioja as well. Um, and here's a look at the Tempranillo grape. Lots of tannin though. I can tell you this wine ages also really beautifully. And I'll be doing an event on Rioja in the end of November, and we'll be tasting the 1994 Grand Reserva from this producer at
Wow.
the tasting.
Wow.
I have wines from the 80s, and I have this producer from 1970 in my cellar as well.
Wow. Mm. What's your price on this wine? It's
It's
probably
it's
very good. Wow.
remarkable.
Wow.
This is why it flies out a case at a time. The current vintage is $40, and there are windows of opportunity that where they come in and even spank me on this price. But they do make you buy like 20 cases to get something even deeper. But this is just a really good wine at a good price, and something I wouldn't mind owning 16 Rioja forever. It's going to be that kind of a vintage. Our final sixth wine is just an absolute landmark wine, La Rioja Alta. We're going to taste their Gran Reserva, a special selection called 904. This is from 2015. This was one of the top 100 wines of the world by multiple uh, reviewers, 97 points, and just an iconic wine from a top house. I buy a lot of different La Rioja Alta productions. Um, How to get a bunch more. In fact, Nina,
Yeah. Wow.
there were quite a few distributor moves in the last couple of months. This was one of them.
Yeah, because they were with Goldens. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotta find out where they went now. I think they're
Skurnik. I think there was Skurnik.
okay. So this house is about to get a call from me. Um, and there's always something fascinating going on at La Rioja Alta. This is not only one of the older producers going back to 1890s, but they got started as basically like a consortium making wines with, was it five or six families,
Yeah,
Nina?
families, right. Yep.
And that's how they were able to pull their money together and to share their ideas and their networking potential, and it's still I think there's still that many families involved, right? They're still all together.
Yeah. Yeah, the originals. Yeah. Remember what you said before about, some of these vineyards have been owned by the same families or the same people for five and six generations. So just because the winery changed its name or whatever adopted this name in 1941, they really started in 1890. And the reason that the five of them got together, think of it as like a negociant kind of thing. I mean, individually producing on their own They had no power and no ability to get, their resources together, buy barrels and so forth. But, it's the same concept and it's just held. Yeah, this wine is unbelievable.
Mm. And
Wow.
yeah, it's a great they're also Haro based.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Looks like Haro still there from the
Yeah.
top.
Yep.
Is that Lopez already in the background?
Um,
Or
yeah,
that
yes, yeah, yeah. They're all on the same street in Aro.
this one's 90 Tempranillo, 10 Graciano, and really has broad shoulders and big structure and chewiness. And you can really smell some of those unique characteristics like coffee, caramel, cinnamon blossom.
That
Uh,
cedar, I totally get the cedar and the menthol. That mint, that's typical of older aged Rioja.
the nose is a journey. I could get lost in there, and uh, has almost like a perfume, like a men's perfume type of a set of aromas.
Uh, uh, that would be the Graciano. Graciano is a variety that's really indigenous to Rioja. There's a little bit of it grown in Texas, but the purpose of Graciano in the traditional Rioja blend is to add acid and aroma. I mean, remember, if the tradition in Rioja is age your wines 10, 20, 30 years, if you want to maintain the aromatic intensity, you have to blend in grapes that do that, either retain color, uh, which is what Mazuelo does, and tannin, or the beautiful acid and aromatics, and that's Graciano.
There's a fun little side story about Graciano, just to make everybody realize how important the grape is. Uh, uh, a famous winemaker was walking through the vineyards in Paso Robles, and the winemaker said, "Oh, this is our Morvedra." And the famous winemaker looked down and he held the leaf in his hand. He goes, "This is not Morvedra." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "This is Graciano." And he goes, "No, it's Morvedra." He goes, "No, it's
I
Graciano."
thought Mourvedre. I thought it was
Yeah, all of Paso
right, really.
thought they bought Morvedra. And a lot of, I mean, there now some have gone and fixed it, but it was planted everywhere, and it's Graciano. And so instead of GSMs, they have GGMs, or GGSs in Paso. So it's a grape variety that's got a new Paso to it too.
Wow.
Yeah, it's this is just an enormous wine, and really love that nose. It definitely aspires for greatness as well.
Wow. Very different. So different from the others, right?
Yeah, it's a bold expression. It's $105 at this time. I do believe we are uh, one of only a few places that still have some 15. I bought large at the end of the offering, down to last couple of cases. But it is a great wine that I'll love having for several years, and it's certainly a wine that appreciates over time too, and probably due for a little bit of a price check after this event, because I'll see what the rest of the world has it for, and at times you're able to, as a retailer, um, check your price up against the marketplace and make a few more dollars.
Um, can I add something about this 2015 vintage and why I think this is a really good buy for what it is. So we talked about vintages and at the beginning, uh, Ian had a slide that listed bueno, mi bueno, excelente, right, of the vintages. But Rioja is one of the only wine regions, maybe the only still wine region in the world, barring port, that declares its vintages and names its vintages. So the reason for this is so that the world knows, there it is, so that the world knows, um, how these wines age, and what to expect from them. Now, so if you have an excellent or a muy bueno year, right? I think either both of those are kind of like interchangeable, very good and excellent. Um, what it means is across the board, all of the vineyards, um, the wines are suitable for aging, long aging. Okay. It doesn't mean that other wines from other years can't, but this is what they're declaring. That's the purpose of them declaring these vintages. So this is a very good year, right? The 2015 and the 2016 are muy bueno, very good, very good. And so they're a good investment to me. Um, I'll just add that. That's just it's just a thing in Rioja. And what it also means is, if you buy a Crianza, right, just a regular nice everyday wine from an excellent year, you could also hold on to that for a little bit. And the quality of the grapes is just really nonpareil. So that's why they name their vintages.
Cool. I think Lisa Tess, you got your answers there. Perfect. Wendy Carlson. Yeah, I agree with you. It really is a wine. You don't even need to drink number six. You could just sit and smell it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas Lodi. Well, there's a lot of Spanish varieties in Lodi that do very, very well.
I'm getting all those really savory, like the tobacco and the leather on this La Rioja Alta. It's beautiful.
Mm.
Wow.
Tremendous, tremendous. Any questions for our lovely guest, Nina? Thank you so much for all your input and
Thanks.
for sharing your expertise. It makes it great. If anybody has a question, you can come on and join us. This is your Zoom.
I do have a question, Ian. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
for it.
for the three red wines. By the way, everything was superb tonight. Thank you so much for that. The three red wines, I could really see where the Todonia and the what is this Rioja Alta, right? I could see where those are going. I was a little bit more puzzled by the Faustino. I don't know if other people had that same impression. Was it because it just recently released, different style or something like that? But I didn't get a sense of being able to predict where it would be in 5 years or anything like that. I liked the wine, but I just didn't have the same sense of destiny for that one. And I just any comments would be great.
I always have an opinion. They're free. Um, the the I think the Faustino just kind of stylistically doesn't try to be as punctuated. I think it is a lot more of a I dare I don't know if they would appreciate me seeing feminine as a way to describe that wine,
Hmm.
but I think it's certainly a more elegant expression of Tempranillo. And I think that, as Nina pointed out, the soils and everything, and that there's a singularity to it. And also, I think the lack of other inputs, like that doesn't have the marks of the wood and the different, uh, winemaking. It's much more just about the singular grape and the singular soils and that kind of expression. So I think it has a great destiny. I think it's already enjoyable, but I think that it'll just continue to slowly evolve. I really think that that wine is going to be a very slow moving ship, and it's not going to change much for a very long time. And that's kind of what it does.
I
Hmm.
think that that's a good point. It's not going to change much, but your point is well taken. The Festino is 100% Tempranillo. The other two wines are blends. And remember what I said about blend, like classic concept of blends. Blends allow you to age your wines longer or do more things because each grape adds its own element to it, right?
Hmm.
And so the classic longer aging, that's why you can see where these two other wines are going, right? And they have more of a backbone. And they also have, I'm just a firm believer of soils in Rioja creating different outcomes. And there was such a difference between the ferrous clay and the calcareous soils in Rioja. Not to be too geeky about it, but there's just a big difference in aroma and flavor. And it doesn't mean that the limestone soils are like, meh, those wines are okay. It's just a different expression of it. Yeah.
Mark, what favorites did you have tonight?
Um, the couple of, and the Rio Alto was just, the finish on that is just, it just keeps lasting and lasting and lasting. I've had their wines before, but I haven't had this one. It's a stunning wine.
Thank you guys. Just before we depart, want to make sure you know that next week we're doing a Zoom focused on natural wines. What are they? And exploring the category with a really great set of wines that I have purchased for the store. I get presented with a lot of them. There's a lot of very interesting angles, and I'm trying to appreciate what is very popular about natural wines, but also just conservatively buy things that I want to represent and tell the story of. And I think we do a very good job next week. You're really going to enjoy a very unique lineup, and we'll talk about different container, different things that they're doing to natural wine or not doing to natural wine, and we'll explore the whole zone.
Ian,
Yeah,
you talked about, you say you'd been to Kune, and so is there like, I mean, I've had more of their middle and upper wines, but obviously, except when I'm in the UK where their cheaper wines show up, and so, are they just really like cover all their bases? I mean, the number of different wines, especially if you count, is it Contino also? I mean, they've got a couple of other labels that
yeah,
are all them. I mean, it's a big portfolio for something that
really
isn't a conglomerate. It's a
Yeah.
single company. It's not one of the big wine conglomerates.
and they make different lineups with different through lines. The label stays the same throughout the through line, but they achieve different prices and different styles and different blends and different ideas, but universally, a very dependable producer at every level. Um, I will also say the House of Kune is one of the great aging wines, and being the go back in time, and those wines. That's the other thing that maybe we don't get a chance to talk about enough tonight, but these wines are just incredible from the great vintages of history. Tasting the
Well,
wine.
even their mid-priced wines, I've sometimes been like odd places like in bars that had old Kune wines that were not at the upper price point,
Well,
and they
they
were 15 years old and they had not died, so
I mean, Rioja is still, a slice of a price compared to some other wines of the world. And just think about 30 years ago and where they were. I mean, they are an incredible value, and the fact that you can buy a 1950s or a 1960s or a 1970s or a 1980s birth year wine and have something sensational. They last and they
the
are
winemaking was still that good even back then, because I
and
haven't had
slow
the.
and slow because they made the wines in very large, slow aging wood. They'd leave the wine wood 5 years or more. I mean,
And then bottle it as they needed it.
yeah,
Right.
they would bottle the 1968 over 10 years. There were different bottlings. So maybe even longer. I mean, it was like that. It was crazy how they you hear about this one being a more recent bottling of the 82. What? Um, so with that, I have just one more slide to show you with the future because we are scheduled all the way through the end of the year with our Zooms. Natural Wines, I think, is great price. Merlot and Cab Franc, great showing of the Rhone Valley, new wines from New Mexico. A lot of really wonderful things. We produce these Zooms at our cost of production. We get them out to you. We appreciate all of you guys being here. We had 24 people subscribe to this Rioja Zoom tonight. So really excited about that. And thank you all. Couldn't do this without you. And we hope to be doing our Zooms for a very long time. I will sign off now with one final thought. Go Dodgers!
Ian, you're really doing the
Yeah.
Burgundies the night before Thanksgiving?
Yes, it's perfect.
Oh, can't do it.
Well,
You could
all
you
right.
could you could taste them on Thanksgiving. Watch the video later. That's what a lot of people tonight are doing because they're at the Dodger game. Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you all.